Critics are calling out the White House for greatly overstating President Biden's support among Democrats in new polling from the New York Times. That poll shows 64% of Democrats want a different nominee in 2024. And when asked about it, the press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, had this to say.
I would also say from that very same poll, there were 92% of Democrats who support this president as well. There's going to be many polls. They're going to go up or they're going to go down. This is not the thing that we are solely focused on.
Well, if she's not focused on it, why was she ready with that? By the way, that was not true. Let's fact check it. According to the poll, 70% of Democrats approve of the job that Biden is doing, which is a little low for his own political party. She may have been referring to this, though, where that 92% came from. And it's Dems who say they would vote for the president in a hypothetical rematch between him and Donald Trump in 2024. This comes as a progressive group is pressing Biden not to run again. Roots Action is launching a Don't Run Joe campaign, set to launch the day after the midterm elections, 119 days from now. You know I'm counting. Pete Hegseth, co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend. So, Pete, I get if she says, well, if he runs against Trump, 92% of Democrats love him. But she didn't say that. I mean, they are painting the wall with a Q-tip.
They are, because they know that people are starting to say out loud what they've been thinking for quite some time. Even when Joe Biden was the nominee, he was never anyone's real first choice. He was always a foil to another candidate they didn't like. And as a result, now he has the Praetorian Guard. I mean, the Praetorian Guard in the New York Times, the Praetorian Guards would guard Roman emperors, but they turned on him over a dozen times. The Praetorian Guard of the New York Times is now effectively declaring from the front page of their newspaper, Joe Biden is unfit to be our nominee in 2024. The most recent article by Peter Baker laying out the fears inside the White House and amongst party elites that Joe's just not only not up to the job physically and cognitively, but his results have been disastrous. The American public see it. When you have 64% of your own party saying, please don't run in 2024, and then you've lost the base that you've catered to the entire time, you're effectively persona non grata. Everyone inside that White House knows it, but they love power. You want to be in the inner circle of power. So they're going to find rationalizations like a matchup with Donald Trump to try to justify his continued existence. But neither his capabilities nor his record give any comfort to Democrats who are looking for an alternative. But Harris, you know this. It's very, very unclear who in the world that alternative would be. They're not looking at the vice president. They're not really looking inside the cabinet. They have serious bench problems.
Yeah, that's the big problem. And you can pull Trump forward. You only help him by doing that, by the way. I mean, he's not in the White House. Biden is. And so now you're going to pick on the other guy while many things are going wrong within the administration and outside of it, that only bolsters potentially the person you'd have to face. I mean, it's pretty mind-boggling why they think that this strategy would work. Well, the White House and President Biden are defending his now controversial trip to Saudi Arabia. Biden is expected to meet with Saudi leaders, including the Crown Prince. Now, remember, our president said on the campaign trail that he would make Saudi Arabia a pariah state. Now he's getting cozy with a man accused of multiple killings, including that of an American journalist, Jamal Khashoggi. The president, again, defending himself in a Washington Post op-ed. And National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan with this.
And if we act now to create a more peaceful and stable region, it will pay dividends for the American national interest and for the American people for years to come. And despite ongoing challenges, the Middle East President Biden will be visiting is more stable than the one we inherited 18 months ago.
However, critics, including members of his own political party, still have their doubts. Congresswoman Jayapal is chair of the Progressive Caucus. Let's watch.
I don't think that this is a good idea. I think that we are essentially sublimating human rights at this point with the president going for this visit.
Wow, isn't that a member of the squad going up against the president? My brain just broke.
This is a master study. It will someday be a case study in how not to start a foreign trip. First say you're not going to do it. then write an op-ed in the Washington Post trying to explain why you're doing it, which is completely antithetical to the real reason why you're doing it. And the reason why you're doing it is because you've reversed the policy of your predecessor, which you may not have liked, which were very coherent and led to a position of strength. So because we were energy independent previously, we did not have to cater to the Saudis, who we shouldn't be catering to for any good reason, especially for the reason of oil, considering their track record of a regime. Let's go back 20 years. We have a short memory on 9/11 as well. But it's in addition to that portion of it, there's no reason why Trump had a coherent strategy when it came to Israel. And Saudi Arabia and the visit there was part of a Abraham Accord approach that no one really saw coming, which reoriented the Middle East and made Saudi Arabia more friendly to the interests of our key ally in the region, Israel. He's flipped that on the lid by sticking Russia in the middle of negotiations with Iran,
goodness.
Saudi Arabia's mortal enemy. So he's going, and Saudi is skeptical. He's going, and Saudi is stronger with all the leverage as far as oil production because of the policies he's pursued, not to mention, Harris, and you know this as well as anybody, the debacles in Afghanistan and the stalemate in Ukraine, which have only made us look weak on the global stage.
Well, and former senior advisor to the president, President Trump, Kellyanne Conway, told me yesterday, she reminded everybody how close we are to 1 year, the date that marks 1 year since the disastrous pullout from Afghanistan. So the pressure is on this president to do some political gymnastics. By the way, we didn't even get into the military part of all of this. What happens when we start selling them weapons? Like, are we really going to sell Iran weapons at this point?
Do we really? What's our track record of sending weapons to so-called enemies, allies who eventually become enemies? If we make the decision to send even more weapons to Iran or Saudi Arabia, we're not necessarily, we don't have any control over how those get used in the future. And certainly they would love to send weapons and send relief to Iran in pursuit of an Iran deal, which is totally antithetical to America's interest at this point, let alone Israel. There's no coherence here, except for weakness and complexity, which our enemies exploit.
Well, the reports I was pointing to are that we potentially would sell weapons to Saudi Arabia. But what we're seeing right now is that countries will turn around, as Iran is doing, and sell those weapons to Russia to use against Ukraine. So anything we put into the universe right now seems to turn on us. All right, let's get to this. How to protect our American shop owners. A coalition of bodega owners now is speaking out after that meeting with Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, one of those liberal DAs. We have one here in New York City, and this is a live look. We've been monitoring this. That's the bodega worker now who's charged with murder for defending himself. Jose Alba was attacked, and there's been widespread outrage over those charges against him. A spokesperson for the United Bodegas of America says he's hopeful about the case getting dismissed. He also had some nice things to say about Bragg. Watch.
We asked him what's his position regarding bodega owners carrying legal guns to defend themselves. And he was very assuring in that he supports it. And he doesn't oppose small, legal, law-abiding business owners like bodega owners carrying a gun.
So he skirted the issue, clearly. What do you make of it?
Oh, really? Do you really believe that? You really believe Alvin Bragg and Governor Hochul and Mayor Adams and other Democrats in urban centers are for arming legal citizens?
So you think he lied to the man
cities?
who leads the Bodega Coalition?
To what consequence? What consequence is he going to face later on for misrepresenting his position or obfuscating? What evidence do we have that the Democrat Party today is for legal gun ownership, especially in urban centers, which are effectively gun-free zones?
True.
That criminal knows when he goes into that bodega, the one thing he can count on is there's not a gun behind the counter, because the bodega owner using it puts himself under legal jeopardy by using it. And so if the criminals are the ones who have the guns and are on the offense, and when you defend yourself, now only because of public pressure have you been let out. The instinct of Bragg and these other DAs is to side with the criminal against the law-abiding citizen. Public outcry is what changed this case, not their ideological disposition. Hopefully, voters, liberals, traditional Democrats will vote these types of folks out, as they have in San Francisco and just might in LA.
And maybe that Bodega of America's Union, maybe that coalition is just acting like they're okay with what the DA is clearly not being honest about.
Because they're at his disposal.
They're at his mercy,
I mean, that's
his
the
disposal.
unfortunate reality. Yes.
All right, Pete Hegseth, thank you so very much. Always great to have you in focus.
Thank you, Harris.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.